Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the State of Black America with the current president of the National Urban League, Mark Morial. What's going on, Mr. Mark?
Hey, what's going on, Ricky? Good morning, and good morning to your listening audience. It's always great to be with you on Monday morning. We've got a few things to flag for people this morning. Number one, this week on the 25th, it will be 3 years since the tragedy in Minneapolis, the murder of George Floyd. And I'm encouraging people to note the moment, but also to note the moment with a continuing call to action. The National Urban League will be calling on major American institutions to reaffirm the commitments some made after George Floyd to address structural and institutional racism. And we'll be calling on those institutions to report on the status of the commitments some made after the murder of George Floyd. It's very important that there be transparency. Many companies, some foundations, some governments stepped up and said, we are going to commit, in some cases, new initiatives, new resources. We want to hear from these institutions about the status to see if those promises made or promises kept. And also because some made commitments, others didn't. And those that have not, it's important to make the commitment. We cannot be deterred by efforts like we see in Florida or in other states to undercut diversity, equity, and inclusion, to undercut efforts to address institutional racism. So in the moment, we're going to remember George Floyd and his family and the murder in Minneapolis. We will remember that thanks to Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, and his team of prosecutors, the advocacy of Ben Crump and others, including our friend Al Sharpton in the civil rights community, and millions of people, literally all across the world. Derek Chauvin and those officers were held accountable in a court of law and are going to spend time in prison. So in this instance, we can say the system may have worked after the fact, but we can't say the system worked because George Floyd should never have been murdered. He should have never been on the ground in Minneapolis. It still remains an example of police misconduct, brutality, and violence. So we're going to remember George Floyd, but we're going to remember it with a constructive, Ricky, constructive call to action in this nation and in America. Secondly, I just want to shout out the principal and president, Alston Taylor, and the student body at St. Augustine High School down in my beloved hometown, New Orleans, St. Augustine, an all-black boys Catholic high school. I got an opportunity to speak at their baccalaureate. Great pride in seeing nearly 100 young black men prepare to go to college after finishing St. Augustine High School, which has an incredible tradition in academics, sports, and music. It is a great institution on 2600 AP Touro Avenue down in the 7th Ward of New Orleans. So thank you and congratulations to the student body and the faculty and Principal Alston Taylor at St. Augustine High School and all those great parents and grandparents who were out with us on that day. And certainly, finally, a little bit on this debt ceiling conversation. To some extent, Ricky, there should really be no, if you will, standoff. The debt ceiling should be raised by the Congress without precondition. This is raising the debt ceiling, or rather raising the nation's authorization to borrow money for monies already committed to. Now, we are hoping that there's a deal made, but not at the expense of black people, brown people, poor people, working people, and vulnerable Americans. The GOP seems to be hell-bent on its punitive agenda around work requirements for those that receive food stamps or Medicaid, harsh and cruel efforts to attach these conditions to the most vulnerable Americans. We are opposed to that, and we're opposed to cuts in investments that help people. So we are watching, but we send a strong message. Don't do this on the back of the locked out and left out Americans. Don't do it. Don't do it. And we want those members of Congress who support us to be strong and principled in this continued fight, as we want the president and his negotiators who are at the table with Kevin McCarthy and others. So we will continue. We need to avert any sort of crisis and default, but it needs to be done in a way that is responsible and a way which is not punitive and harsh and mean and nasty against those who are locked out and left out. If we're going to have some sort of 1, 2, 3 year budget deal, as we understand they're discussing. So Black America, let's keep our eyes on this discussion as we move forward. And Ricky, those topics are today's State of Black America. It is always incredible to be with you. Love to be with you on the show and the team and all the work that's being done to make sure our communities are well informed. Once again, Mark Morial, President of the National Urban League. This is the State of Black America. Follow me across all social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, at Mark Morial and at Nat Urban League. And I'll see you next time.
Yes,
on
sir.
the radio.
Yes, sir. And you've been listening to the State of Black America with the former New Orleans mayor and Louisiana State Senator Mark Morial, currently president of the National Urban League. Thank you so much, Mr. Mark. We love you, and we appreciate you. Talk to you on Monday. More Rick's Morning Show coming up.